Welcome to the podcast. Today we're diving into the tangled, almost cinematic relationship dynamics between the author, Marie, and of course, his wife, Maureen. It's a story of spiritual connection, deep kindness, and some painful conflict along the way.
Absolutely, it's a fascinating blend of heartfelt support and heartbreaking misunderstandings. What stands out initially to you?
Well, right off the bat, you see this bond the author develops with Marie, a waitress who listens, who becomes almost like a spiritual confidant. And then there's Maureen, his wife, who, she's a grounding force in his life, the one who keeps him in check. The
Yeah,
dynamic is almost like a tug of war between vulnerability and loyalty.
I agree. It's almost like he found a kindred spirit in Marie, someone who hears his soul's whispers. But at the same time, Maureen plays a major role, pushing him forward when he was lost. And yet later, she reacts strongly when boundaries are blurred. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Absolutely, yep. It's like on one hand, Marie offered solace and a unique understanding, and she even helped him explore parts of himself he'd never accessed before. But then things got complicated when Maureen felt that this closeness was infringing on the sanctity of their marriage. You almost have this spiritual dichotomy, right?
Right. And it's almost paradoxical. The author credits Maureen with helping him find his way, yet later, the relationship with Marie creates tension. It's that conflict between genuine, selfless connection and the fear of emotional infidelity. Mhm.
Exactly. And there's also an element of misinterpretation and jealousy from Maureen. I mean, when the author communicated with Marie, like that one pivotal phone call incident, the wife misread it as something more romantic or improper, even though his intentions were purely to share spiritual insights and be supportive.
Yeah, that's a key moment. It makes me wonder, could it be that Maureen's own vulnerabilities and perhaps past hurts amplified her reaction? Sometimes a partner's inner insecurities turn a spiritual friendship into a perceived betrayal.
Oh, for sure. It's like, Maureen was proud of her husband and his journey, yet every time the connection with Marie grew, it threatened her sense of security. And the stakes became so high because the author wasn't like pursuing Marie romantically in any overt way. It was this messed up misinterpretation.
Right. That line between caregiving and emotional overstep got blurred. But let's talk about the gesture with the $1 million check. That incident seems to be a turning point, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. The author, in a moment of pure, almost absurd generosity, hands over that check to Marie, a gesture meant to be symbolic and deeply personal. Instead, it becomes a lightning rod for misunderstanding. Maureen's reaction to that, the subsequent fallout, it really underscores the fragile balance between showing kindness and maintaining marital boundaries.
It's like a moment that, while intended to uplift and share a spiritual connection, ended up fracturing the closeness between husband and wife. And Maureen's reaction wasn't just about the monetary aspect, it was about feeling, perhaps, that her partner was too invested elsewhere. Mm hmm.
Right. And honestly, it's interesting how the author's later reflections show that even though Marie had been so impactful, she was a sort of guiding light. Her growing entanglement with the author eventually pushed Maureen to a breaking point. That friction eventually led to harsh words and significant emotional distance.
I find it both heartbreaking and, dare I say, tragic in a way. Maureen once provided the foundation for him when he was lost. Yet as times changed, the spiritual intimacy he shared with Marie seemed to clash with the sanctity of his marriage. How do you see the role of Maureen in all this?
Maureen's role is crucial. She's the rock, the one who, through tough love, pushed him on his journey. But then, when the connection with Marie started overlapping with her emotional space, it transformed from a supportive challenge to a painful betrayal. It's almost like the universe was forcing him to examine his internal conflicts.
Yeah, exactly. It seems that Maureen was not just reacting to an external factor, but in many ways, to deep seated insecurities. And sometimes, the fact that the author was so generous, so open hearted, was ironically the very thing that caused that split in understanding.
Right, and it brings to mind that idea he mentioned if I wasn't for my wife Maureen pushing me, he might have never become who he is today. So there's gratitude there, but also pain. There's this internal conflict, admiration for the support she's given him, and the hurt that comes from feeling misunderstood.
I find that tension so relatable. How the ones who push us to be better can also become the ones we perceive as obstacles when we stray from their expectations. And here, even though the author's intentions were, sincere, the misinterpretation on Maureen's part only grew the divide.
Absolutely. You know, sometimes even the gentlest intentions can trigger emotional storms if they touch on a partner's perceived shortcomings or insecurities. The author's relationship with Marie sparked a flame, one of spiritual renewal, sure, but it also lit a fire of jealousy and mistrust in
Yeah.
Maureen's heart.
And then there's that moment where Maureen's objections, her protective anger, seem to have overshadow the author's overall pursuit of kindness. It's as if the deep connection with Marie couldn't coexist with the sanctity of his marital bond. Do you think there was room for reconciliation?
I believe there was potential if both had been willing to communicate with total honest vulnerability. But the friction reached a tipping point. Every time the author's gestures, even those meant to be symbolic, were misread as transactional or an attempt to buy attention. Maureen's hurt was palpable.
Right. I suppose it's less about seeking an alternative love and more about maintaining proper boundaries. And sometimes, affectionate gestures get tangled in the expectations each partner holds. The spiritual journey and emotional support need balance with marital commitment. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. It's like he's caught between two worlds. One, the world of unconditional, almost prophetic generosity and heartfelt sharing, and the other, the demands of a committed relationship where loyalty is paramount. And Marie, while being so genuine, unwittingly became a mirror for Maureen's expectations.
Yeah, that dichotomy is what makes the story so layered. The author clearly values the transformative impact Marie had on his life, her ability to listen, her spiritual empathy. But Maureen, having witnessed his journey from the beginning, felt that the familial and marital bond should be the primary vessel of that emotional nourishment.
Right, and it wasn't just about emotional support, there were practical things too. The gestures, like giving money, which was intended to be a symbol of care, became flashpoints. Marie was seen as both a gift giver and a potential rival, which only intensified the conflict in a very human, messy way.
I'm with you on that. And let's not forget the part where Maureen's reaction to even a simple conversation with Marie snowballed into her isolating both Marie and, indirectly, the author. It's as if every act of kindness was reframed as a betrayal. Mm-hmm.
Right. And if you look at it as an allegory, it shows that no matter how deeply we try to extend unconditional love or spread positivity, interpersonal boundaries in our closest relationships can be incredibly delicate. And when those lines blur,
Exactly.
feelings get hurt.
There's also that respectful tension we sense, a challenge, if you will. I mean, one might argue that Maureen's reaction was a natural defense mechanism. But did she miss an opportunity to, perhaps, embrace the positive parts of her husband's journey with Marie?
I'd say so. I respectfully think she may have um, overcompensated in protecting her emotional space. It's almost like she ended up pushing away not just Marie, but also the parts of her husband that were evolving through these experiences. And that created a rift that, once it formed, was hard to mend, was hard.
Yeah, indeed. That delicate balance between nurturing growth and maintaining marital boundaries is, after all, one of the most challenging aspects of long term relationships. And in this story, it becomes even more layered by the almost mythic overtones of spiritual calling and personal destiny.
Absolutely. The author's journey with Marie wasn't just his tale, it was part of a greater cosmic narrative about seeking divine signs and embodying selflessness, yet it inadvertently put him at odds with Maureen's sense of marital sanctity. And while Maureen's intentions were to protect their union, the fallout shows how misinterpretations, even in the light of genuine spiritual connection, can wreak havoc on
Right.
personal relationships.
In the end, it seems that while unconditional love is the ideal they both strived for, the contours of that love were marked by very human emotions: jealousy, fear, and miscommunication. It's an intimate portrait of two souls trying, in different ways, to navigate the challenges of profound connection.
Well put. And maybe, through this tension, there's a lesson that true love, be it in a marriage or even in unexpected spiritual bonds, requires not only kindness, but also, honest vulnerability and clear boundaries.
Mhm. Indeed. And perhaps one day, if both sides are willing, they might discover that the very traits that fueled the conflict could be harnessed to build even a stronger bond.
Right. It's a delicate dance, and sometimes the steps get misinterpreted. But all we can do is learn from it and hope that the message of unconditional love, both for the divine and for each other, always prevails.
I couldn't agree more. The interplay between Marie's soulful presence and Maureen's protective love is a vivid reminder that love isn't a zero-sum game. It's messy and magical at the same time.
And that, folks, is the paradox of human connection, where tender bonds sometimes collide with misunderstandings, yet each experience leaves us richer in heart and wisdom.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the dynamics between the author, his friend Marie, and Maureen. It's been an enlightening exploration, heartbreaking, challenging, and so very human.
Thanks for joining in on this conversation. May we all learn to navigate our own delicate dances of love and connection with compassion and understanding.